Hola y bienvenidos a todo to the Polynesian Eyes podcast. This is Tua coming in live from South Central Texas. And we have Mr. Atearoa joining us from Auckland, New Zealand. How are things in the land of the long white cloud, Mr. Atearoa?
Pretty hot today, Tua. Pretty hot today.
Oh,
It's a Saturday here in New Zealand. I think it's just a bit hot because there's actually no kind of breeze or wind that's kind of blowing by. But at the same time, I'm not gonna complain. This hot is not close to the Tonga hot that I was in Tonga about a couple months ago. So I'll take this. I'll still take it.
it
But
could
it's a
always be worse. It could
yes,
always be worse.
yes. So far so good. Saturday, nothing really going on. Today was more a relaxed day. I was thinking of doing some cleaning some vehicles to be somewhat productive and just pull some weeds, but today was more of a chillax kind of day.
Hey,
So
that's my kind of day.
yeah, so that's me. I don't know any more snow. Did any more snow fall in your
No,
guys' way?
no, thank goodness. But I was in Michigan this week
Okay.
and it was cold and there was snow there. Uh,
Yeah.
I flew up to Michigan this week for a meeting. Thank goodness I didn't have to stay there too long because I was dying to come back to 70s. It's at the 70s here in
Mm.
Texas. It's been beautiful the last few days. These are the type of days during winter, especially when I travel for work, that I'm like, this is why I live in Texas. This is why I
Yeah.
live in warm weather because I don't want to deal with the snow that's all over the place.
Nice.
So pretty good, pretty
Nice.
good. Um, I had a quick question I meant to ask you, Masi, because this is something I want to hopefully we can get to in the near future. Seems to be some drama in the politics going on in Samoa lately.
Yes.
Not sure.
Yes.
Seems like I saw one article said that the PM had a picture of Christ removed, and then there's also fighting maybe in the internal party of the
Mm.
PM, and like some people try to take it to the courts, and the court said that's an internal party issue, not a government or legal issue. But what's kind of your understanding of what's going on over there?
So my understanding, I follow, Samoan politics here and there, not heavily, but I still keep an ear out because lived there for a couple years. Um, Fiame, who is the prime minister of who's the prime minister of Samoa at the moment, she was elected as
Woman,
prime
right?
minister.
First woman.
Yes, first woman to the prime minister position in Samoa. So she got there by she used to be under Tuila Epa. Tuila Epa Tua. He's kind of his party that they're called the HRPP. They're like the human rights something, but that's like the
Mm.
common acronym for that party. She used to be that party. Then she went to this new party for it's called FAS, and then she was that new party got the majority. She was selected to go into by the party to go become the prime minister.
And
First
there
woman
was
to
like
do it.
some drama when she became prime minister because the old
Correct.
PM said he wasn't going to leave or
Or
something
it
like
was just
that.
wanted to challenge some courts, and then he wouldn't give the keys and stuff. So there's some little stuff scuffle here and there. So and then so right now they still got about this year left, and then their elections for Samoa is next year. But there is a fallout with the chair of the party of the FAS that Fiame, the prime minister, is currently representing, and herself.
Hmm.
Apparently, you know, he's been charged with charged with criminal activity, and he's due to go to court. And Prime Minister Fiame asked him to either resign or just give up your position to the or
Move on.
on. But with the whole politics, even when you're charged, you just don't know if it's a political thing that's
Yeah.
kind of going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the challenger, the chair, whose name is La'auri, he gonna go refer is commonly referred to. He said, "No, I'm not gonna resign. This is some political." Uh, actions that are going against me, just let it play through. I'll just still hold my minister.
Yeah, it's political, not legal.
Yes, it's a political thing, so let me just ride it through. And Fiamme didn't like that, so she removed him. But he's the chair of the party that Fiamme represents, and he still got a few. I think Fiamme only has like 5 people who are loyal to her. The rest of the party members are loyal to the Laudi guy who's the chair. They all decide to remove Fiamme, so now she has no party. And apparently, in Samoa's
Constitution.
constitution, states that you need to be in a party to be in government or be in parliament.
So is she
And
going to
now that
create her own party or something or what?
create her own parties, there's news that came out that she's been having private meetings with Tuila Epa and the
To try
opposition
and
to
do a coalition?
maybe do a coalition or something. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at. But when you told me they removed the picture of Christ, I don't know what that's all about. I don't know why Fiamme did that, but yeah,
Yeah.
we'll
I
see.
mean, you know
I don't
how it
know.
is. I didn't read the whole article. I just read the
Okay.
headline, and the
Yeah.
it could be just an accusation, right? When you
Okay.
get
Okay.
political just to try and
Yes.
score some easy points to be like, look, she doesn't even believe in Jesus or
Yes.
something like that. So,
So so it's one of those things too. Like, so you need to be in a party, but then in the parliament rules, the prime minister can only be removed by the people who are in parliament. So it's kind of
mm,
like a funky situation. So yeah, Samoa is going through that at the moment. So
okay. So it's kind of like new ground. Maybe they might have to come up with new processes and stuff to address if future situations like that, but seems to be new ground for our
yes,
Ha'amoa brothers and sisters.
yes, or a snap election, but that can be a
Mm,
bit difficult. But I don't think,
yeah,
from what I'm reading, both sides or many people in parliament do not want a snap election. So
yeah, because it's just kind of like hectic,
a lot of
you know.
resources that are gonna go. It's very time consuming
Yeah. Okay.
and resource wasting. So
I
yeah,
just thought I'd ask that question just because I have seen it and I thought, oh, this, and I saved like one of the articles was that article about her supposedly or being accused of removing a picture
yep.
of Jesus from like Parliament and then, interviewing
She's
him.
angry.
Maybe,
She's angry, blaming it on Jesus, the picture of
yeah,
Jesus.
somebody's got to be blamed. And then I saw a video maybe of that Lauri guy kind of
Yeah.
saying how he was kind of unfairly treated and that's
Mm.
why blah blah blah. I don't know. So
No,
we
and
were
that's the thing
gonna
about
spend an episode on that.
yes, and that's the thing about his case. He's been charged before, and he's been in government, and he's had all the charges dropped when he went through it.
Dropped.
So you gotta. If I was in Fiame's position, I would have just write it out because he has been done wrong before, and this could be another uh, you know, political
Yeah.
accusation
Just
that's
a
gonna go.
strategy from the
Eel,
opposition or whoever.
eel. So it's just
Okay.
politics. Politics is a very interesting game. That, like what
Mm.
Trump said, it's the most bloodiest game or
Yeah.
bloodiest sport
It's
than any
ruthless.
sport. Yeah.
Yeah. It's ruthless because it doesn't just come against you, it'll come against your friends, your family,
Mm,
anyone. It's a
mm,
very, very, like you said, bloodthirsty sport, man. It's a blood sport.
yep.
Okay, Malo, Masi for kind of answering that curiosity question. Today, the meat of our program, which was the decision as of about like maybe 45 minutes ago,
Mm,
due to some interactions online, talking back and forth with a bunch of our brothers and sisters from Ha'amoa, once again discussing where is Tangaloa from, is Aho Etu Samoan, what are our origins, and talking through that history. Um, and really, this is why it's kind of like our creation account.
yeah.
The beginning is very important. The beginning sets the context for everything else that comes downstream. This is why
Mm,
um, Tangaloa is such a controversial discussion. This is why Aho Etu and the Tu'imanua, everything is coming back to a discussion on the origins of Tonga and Ha'amoa because why? Everyone knows it's somewhere in there,
Mm.
the Polynesian empire, the culture and the people, the language, the religion that we know to be Polynesian originated from somewhere there,
Yeah.
right? And that's why
Yep.
there's heavy discussion on it. We get a lot of accusations from and some from people. Let me just share here. Maybe we'll skim through
Let's
some of the
go.
comments. We get accused of, why are you guys just hating on Samoa, on Ha'amoa? And
Mm.
I want to say, it's not that we're hating, is we're trying to fight a narrative. And the current narrative is Ha'amoa is the origin. Tangaloa was from Ha'amoa, and that Ao'etu um, came from there.
Mm.
So, and then there was also a debate on one of our articles. Remember that one on the Pule Malay,
Yes.
with with that whole presentation, and one of the Samoan professors talks about how they've tracked some of the DNA, and at some point foreign DNA was introduced, and it was his
Hmm.
opinion
Yeah.
that was
Hmm.
Tangaloa DNA being introduced into the population. So
Mm.
let me see. Like I said, this is all the activity that
Wow.
resulted in
Lot
us.
of lot of interest in this segment right here, huh?
Yes.
This.
So maybe let's do this first. Let's maybe watch the short
Okay.
real quick and see what the driver is behind some of this.
And from my knowledge, Tua Manua still uses the multiple legs because that
That's the
resembles their
Samoan
knowledge
Kava ball. Yes.
of their house, the Samoan Fale. So
Yes.
that's another reason why it most likely didn't come from Manua. It's really in Tonga. I think right there too that Kumete kind of. Oh, it's
Yes.
okay.
I'm trying to find, I think there's a specific article that goes over that.
Mhm, okay.
So that's where a lot of the comments were being driven from. Um I'm trying to see. And so, like here, it says the Faleula was the first Fale Samoa, the royal crimson house of the Tuimanua, later gifted to the Malietoa family. Or tradition says that it was convened by the Sa Tangaloa in Manua, a house that was built to reflect the heavens. So, you know how we make the
Mm,
argument, the Tongan Taumafakawa is more
correct.
sophisticated, and
Correct.
that the Tuimanua
Seating
or the
arrangements. Yeah.
Kava is more on the house, the Samoan Fale.
Correct.
So they're trying to make the argument that the Fale is a reflection of the heavens.
The heavens.
You understand the structuring; it really doesn't. The seating and the structure doesn't reflect the heavens itself.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
I'm trying to see. So that was one video, and then there was
yeah.
one other one. Um,
Sure.
we'll pause this. Uncle Trump's press secretary.
New press secretary. No, because that's interesting too. With the Satang law that person was commenting that it reflects the heavens. See, and that's the thing. When we talk about sophisticated, there's really no details. Like, what do you mean? Like,
Mhm.
what parts of the heavens does that reflect? Right?
Yeah,
Because I we can go in our episode. We go to the very detail to the equator, to the positions of
tropics.
the
Yeah,
tropics, right? And then we even go to the
rising and setting of the
constellations,
sun, the
right? And setting
constellations.
up the constellation. So like that's the detail, like reflection of the signs. That's very broad, and hopefully that viewer can or that person that did that comment can go like to the details, like how does it reflect the heavens? Because what we see and what we that's been passed around, the tanoa or the kumete, right, is the multiple legs reflects the multiple poles that holds up a roof of a
Yeah,
ha'amoa fare.
yeah,
So, yeah, I don't know.
and
That's just my thoughts there too. I don't.
gotta
Yeah,
remember.
my thing.
No, 100% agreed there. And then here's the other video. There were two videos that drove a lot of the conversation just before we came online. Here's
Yeah.
the other one. Remember, there was no Samoa. There was the Polynesian Empire, the Tuitonga Empire.
Yep.
So the idea of snitching and playing double agent, that may not be the case, because these advisors to the Tuimanua saw the Tuimanua as one of the many regions that were under the Tuitonga, and they were loyal to the supreme ruler, the
Mm-hmm.
Tuitonga, which is of higher significance and of higher importance and of higher obligation than the
Mm.
Tuimanua. That's just another way to potentially explain the
Yep.
behavior of the Loa, which would once again confirm that the Tuimanua was not an empire that established or developed the Tuitonga Empire.
Mm.
So yeah, I think I really appreciate, like you were mentioning, King Afa's comments. Interesting. He has a good
Mm.
way of
Yeah.
presenting the information. He's good at having that presentation, and we appreciate it. And with that being said, we appreciate everyone for this podcast. Till next time, have a good one. So it looks like, let me see if I can get the comments.
Mm.
See right here, right? I don't understand why you two always throw shade at the Tu'i Manua and the history of Samoa. Please talk about your Tongan culture and how you two can promote positive vibes in the community, right? And I tried to respond like, we're not throwing shade, but you're pushing the narrative that the Tu'i Manua is the origin of the empire, right?
Mm.
And the origin of the
Mm.
Tu'i Tonga. We're just responding
Correct.
to that
Correct.
narrative. But
Correct.
any thoughts, Masio? You want me to keep skimming through?
Yeah, no, no, just like it's just the whole vibe. Those are the and I think this is the reason why we can't even talk freely and in depth about our history, right? Because people think it's not correct and it's shade and stuff. It's like when you talk about stuff that you people we can't control what people can perceive. It's gonna be shade. Like for example, people's what people think is being mean or kind is not what other people think that's mean or kind. But
Yeah.
I think those are the kind of comments that you feel like you can probably that's why it's probably that's the kind of comments why we haven't been able to discuss freely about the origin of Polynesia, just in a freely manner that we can all learn and just get to
Ideas can't compete,
yes,
right?
and ideas cannot compete and just see which one is more accurate about our history, and that's all it is. But and to
It
me,
would
the reason people and Tua, you know what, Tua, and that's the thing. Maybe people think it's shade, throwing shade. One is because they they don't have too much knowledge about the Polynesian history. Maybe they still think it was still boundary, and we were sectioned off in different parts, and we were just kind of living isolation a little bit. I don't know. That's kind of my thinking too. If people have that kind of idea, because you're gonna
no
have if you
100%.
really think if you really think you have a Polynesian nation, just like Rome was a nation of many other countries, you in order to you talk about the past, how it was an empire. You can think you're gonna be crossing over to different parts of how people do differently, and we all know, and we all say that Hamoa did things a little bit differently. That's why the Tuikan Polo exists, and they pass their titles a lot different than the predecessors of the Tuitonga and the Tui Hatagalawa. And that's the thing, right? It's just because we're doing things differently doesn't mean that we
It's
cannot talk
wrong or
about
bad or
it's wrong.
anything, but
Yes,
yeah.
we're just talking about it. But that's the
Yeah,
thing,
no,
right? That's the thing. We in order to really dig in, talk about our history, present ideas, philosophy, the reason why this happened and that reason, and provide evidence of our oral ruins, physical, the structure and the Polynesian
yeah.
essence of how they ran things, and give you that Polynesian eyes view. Um, that's what we're doing. And I think you and I understood too that of course people think we're going to be stepping on their toes when we're not. We're just presenting
Yeah.
ideas and let the best idea and most accurate or more sound argument
No, I mean,
rise
and
up
that's
to
a
the top.
pretty weak response, right? Like, imagine if someone came with the Tu'i Manua position, expressed their ideas, and then you and I said, "Why you always gotta throw shade on the Tu'i Tonga?
Mm,
Why?" That's not a way to, like you said, have a conversation.
yeah.
Let's catch up on some of the chats here. What a Bears, Malo
Hey, water
Toko,
bears.
welcome.
What's up?
What
What's
a
up?
Bear says, Sup Tokos, I just finished the Xiaoxi Ilayu series. Interesting stuff. Yes, a lot
Yeah.
of positive feedback on
Mm,
Xiaoxi Ilayu. And specifically, Warabear says when he said that Aho'eitu conquered all four Tutuila, Manono, Manu, and Savai'i, I'm assuming that's Manua. He wanted a daughter of the Tui Manu at the time who was Moa and give him lordship over Ha'amoa,
Mm,
Ka'atoa or A'atoa, right? So that's another interesting
yeah.
position there from Siausi Ilayu. We also heard other ideas that kind of similar to this is when Tangaloa handed Aho'eitu the the that basically made him the heir, the Tuitonga,
Mhm.
that there wasn't an immediate acceptance of Aho'eitu as the heir, and that there was some effort by Aho'eitu to try and establish himself, maybe through military conquest, maybe through marriages. Um, but yeah, there's different ideas on how that happened. Any thoughts on that, Masi?
Uh, no, no. I'm pretty confident on the the name, the actual. I'm not a because I know there's been ideas saying that Samoa and like it's been weird. They're doing like the Samoa means sacred center in a way that's where Samoa kind of derived from. But I think when when we say like the Moa, it's a Moa clan is the much
Yeah,
more accurate term.
especially
It's
when the flag is a moa, not a
yes,
sacred center.
correct, correct. And I think that yeah, and that's the thing, right? They just I think it's one of the comments we've been getting a lot. Tua, they say, oh, Tonga Tapu cannot be the origin because it's south. So they were south, right? And then they say Tokelau or Toelau on the north. So Samoa is the center. So
Center.
because when you're the center, you're the origin, right? That's some of the arguments I've been
Yeah,
seeing a lot too. But no, that's just not the case. The case that way
yeah.
because
It's not a very
evidence is
strong.
oral. Yeah,
Yeah, correlation does not mean cause and effect,
yeah,
right? Just because it so happens that there's an island named North and an island named South and something in the middle, oh, that must be the origin.
yeah,
That means every capital and every origin must be in the middle, which is not always the case. That's like rarely the case.
yeah, yeah.
Um, we also have another comment here from Samita Langi Ofa Tuamotangata.
Ooh.
Malo Samita. Thank you.
Samita, happy birthday. I think today's your birthday. I think I saw a post by your wife,
Oy.
Joanna. Tama Joanna go aho and so talamonua to Samita if that's the case. Ofado.
Malo Samita. Stopping by on your special day. Happy
Yes.
birthday. So, I mean, and it kind of goes along. We'll come back here. I want to, one of your comments is pretty relevant to it, Masi, because um, it says here Samoa as an indie. Oh, well, that's the response that we had. Samoa was independent for most of its history. The only time it wasn't was during the Tongan occupation and
Mm,
European colonization. Other than those times, it was independent. See, this
yeah.
is the kind of stuff we're talking about.
Mm, mm,
And this individual here, I can't remember their name. It's just flags, but we were talking back and forth. Oh, hey, Jason, what's up, man?
What's up, Jason?
Oh, yes.
Oh, Crusaders. Oh,
Crusaders, this brother, the brotherhood right here.
Jason.
Hey,
Jason, watch out.
Jason,
The tomahawk is
my
coming.
co-host here is a Red Raider for life. We pray for him.
Uh,
We pray
uh,
for him
uh,
every
uh,
day.
Crusaders number
Jason,
two. Kahuku
uh,
Tomahawk number one.
he says, "Let's go, let's go." Okay, Malo. So there was a whole discussion on what does it mean to be a nation, right?
Mm,
And basically, see, this is the challenge. You
yeah.
either believe that Polynesia was a nation or it wasn't,
Yeah.
right? And this kind of comment, it tells me that their position is Polynesia was not a nation and that they were independent nations within Polynesia.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that, Masi?
Yeah. No,
Yay, nay?
that's like we said, and this is I think we kind of touched on it too, but it's good like we keep discussing because we get new viewers and new people keep joining our our program, right? Samoa's
Mhm.
even their culture right now, nothing is centralized. Nothing is
Yeah.
centralized. You go to one village to another. I'll give you an example. So when I'm in a village there's one of the village I used to live in. Part of those that village rules is it's called Satubaitea in Savai. It's village rules where if somebody was gonna baptize from one faith to another faith, right? Especially like from a Methodist, it was a strong Methodist. They call it Lokukonga, the Methodist church. If you're gonna get somebody to convert to the LDS faith, part of the rule is that person that was gonna convert to the LDS faith, they had to pay a fine or pay some money, right? And that was just the village
Interesting.
rules, right?
Interesting.
You literally walk to the next village. It could be I think the next one is like Fa'ala, or you go to the other one. It's called Sili, or a next village. They don't have that rule, so you can convert somebody, and then that person didn't have to pay a fine. So what would we do? Sometimes if they had a family member on some other villages and stuff, we say
Go
if
to
you can
the
go and
other
get
village and
baptized,
get
yeah.
baptized there.
So that's what I'm saying to me, and that's how Ha'amoa has been functioning its entire kind of history. And then, so why it's been functioning that? Because we have evidence of the Tui Karupolu there in Tauvahau, and probably the first Tui Karupolu when it came. How did they run their things? It was like a vote of multiple
Yeah. A
chiefs
Matai system.
selecting Matai system, voting who's gonna have the title holder, or not even voting, but whoever would influence the voters
Yeah.
of major families, right, to vote for that person. And that's how Samoa is. One village, whoever how they think and do things, it's totally different than the next village. So to say it was an independent nation, I can't see that, because if it was an independent nation, they would be have one. Who was the ruler of Upolu, right? There was really
Yeah.
nobody. It was multiple leaders,
It's a
because that's
bunch
how
of
some
chiefdoms, a bunch of
chieftains.
chiefdoms operating independently of each other.
Correct. And who was the supreme? You kind of mentioned who was the supreme or prominent chief in all of Polynesia was the Tuitonga, right? The Tuitonga.
Yeah.
We have evidence going living in Savai when the Pulimelei gives us that strong indicator that that's where it kind of he probably spent the most time, maybe during in Ha'amo for 5 generations,
Yeah.
and he came back to Tongatapu. So with our that viewers comment saying that it was always an independent nation until Tonga occupation and being colonized by Europeans. That's probably not accurate, because there's no time in Samoa. Oh, maybe one time, right?
There's
Salamasina.
Salamasina, and then in some of the oral history I've seen, they said that maybe one Tu'imanua for a short
Mm,
period of time
okay.
united united the Western islands under Manua,
Yes.
but it didn't even last beyond him. It was just like a short period of time.
Yeah. Well,
So
it was.
yeah,
Yeah. Same thing with Salamasina, right? It didn't last beyond her. So right when
beyond her.
yeah. So other than those two examples, most of Samoa's history, actually, even up to today, has been more really not having really independent, like being known as
Consolidated
Samoa,
power. Yeah.
consolidated power. So that's what I view. I don't know if you had anything to add
No,
to that.
I agree with that. And that is why, what you explained is why I find it very difficult to believe that that was in a center of the empire, right?
Yeah.
Because of that distributed nature of that power in Ha'amoa. It's very difficult. I mean, that's the whole point. If you were barely able to unite the quote unquote Samoan islands for a short period of time, what makes you think you had islands that were thousands of miles away under your control, right?
Mm,
And so that to me is a challenge. The even the oral history, it says, oh, Samoa Atoa, but when you look in, oh, who are the guys in charge of Samoa Atoa? Oh, the Tui Manua. And then you find out later, a lot of the guys in Upolu and Savai didn't like the Tui Manua many times,
mm,
right?
mm,
And didn't want to be governed by the Tui Manua and actually opposed him. And then there's some oral history that could be driven by, I guess there could have been a migration of Hawaiians
yeah.
down into the western parts of Ha'amoa,
Mm-hmm.
that could have caused maybe the division a little bit.
Mm,
Who knows?
mm,
Um, The other thing too is the archaeological evidence puts a
Yeah.
lot of doubt into the longevity and the ancient nature of the Tu'imanua, right? There's just a
Yeah.
lot of questions across the board. The lack of ruins. Um, it's just it's a very difficult thing to say the identity of what we call Ha'amoa today has been there for thousands of years. There's just there's just no evidence for that that we can think of. Even the
Mm,
oral history contradicts that idea.
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, that is a challenge. And
Mm,
so the other thing that is kind of tied to that is Tangaloa. Well, first off, let me see if I can find this video. Even within Ha'amoa, we are told conflicting things, right? Because we say from Tonga, Tangaloa was a person, right?
correct.
And then so we say, hey, Tangaloa wasn't a god, he was a person. And I hear
Hmm.
a lot from Ha'amoa is, oh, there's a Tangaloa family, right? And that's the family. And then when we speak to certain people who've studied that oral history, they say the oral history says that Tangaloa liked a woman in Ha'amoa
Hmm.
and apparently was the wife of someone else. So he gave his title
Mm,
to either the father or the spouse of this woman so that he could marry the woman. So
mm.
once again, even if we were to believe that story, it is not a blood descendant, it is a
Title.
selling of a title,
Mm,
right? So
mm.
even that story doesn't say that you're the actual Tangaloa. And I came across a video and I hope I saved it because so many people is like, oh, that's in Ha'amoa, we don't believe that Tangaloa is a god. But then I go everywhere online, and guess what they talk about?
People, they talk it as it's a godlike.
Yes, they talk about it like Tangaloa is a god. So it's kind of confusing to me. What did you hear most often when you were in Samoa? Did you guys ever had those kind of discussions as to is Tangaloa a human or a god?
I'm just trying to reflect here if I've had any discussions. Um, Tua, I don't think I've had discussions talking about Tangaloa or
Specifically?
specifically relating to Hamo's history, but yeah, no, nothing that I can remember.
Okay.
But I would just want to go back to the our discussion here, and this is the discussion that I feel like is very important to Tua for the next generation, and even people now to because the this person that commented that Samoa's kind of been independent. I know he's many more people who think the same way. So this is the only way to kind of share ideas and
And
give you
talk
our
about it.
reasons. Yeah,
Yeah.
give you our reasons, and then you can if we're wrong, you give your reasons, and then we can just have a debate, and then whatever is more sound, let that be, let that be, kind of thing. So, but we enjoy the discussions, the interaction, the comments, because that's how we all learn. So yeah.
No, 100%. Okay. So I think we think it's important. One of the things to discuss and get a good understanding is the first to Itonga. Who is he? Where did he come from? What's the storyline? And have a kind of discussion on that.
Mm.
So we have a video here that let's do it this way. Maybe we'll try this layout for a little bit,
All right.
Mussy, and just remind me to switch back to the bigger one when we talk. But let's
Okay.
let's let's watch this for a little bit and respond to it and just kind of react.
Hey, Tua, I'm not hearing any sound. I don't know if.
Oh yeah, I made it mute. Good thing you said
Yeah,
something.
there we go.
Papua. Dia mea go te magu eke.
Koe ha.
Malo ke iloi pe go ofa ya koe.
Iyo.
Pea mo whakahoko ngai mea ko tau pe ke kalamai ke te au.
A oi ko whatongia pia o oku. Ke tau hi koe. Ko ha mea o ke hohaa ki ai, ko ha mea o ke tokanga ki ai.
Ko mawe ai go eke te mea koe.
Koe ha.
Ko hae ku tamai.
We are the Skaggs family.
Oh,
Matthew
let's
and Cosette. We are
pause that real quick. So, Mike, what do you understand on who is Vaipopua? So this is Ao Etu, right?
Mhm.
And his mom
Yep.
having a conversation saying, "Hey, I want to know who my dad is," right? What's kind of your understanding of who is Vaipopua and where is she from?
Yes, my understanding by Popua is from Niwa Toktapu. Is that correct, Tua? I mean, this is
Yeah,
what I'm
from
thinking.
Niwa. Yeah, from
Yeah,
the
from
Niwas.
Niwa. From the Niwas. Did they go specifically, or am I just hearing thing Niwa Toktapu to be specific?
It could be Niwa Tapu. I can't think off the top of my head. All I know is she's from the
Niwa.
Niwas. I want to say Niwa Tapu, but I'm
Yeah.
not 100% sure.
Yes, and Tangaloa came to Vaipopua and had children. I think because was it only one
The
just
only
Ao
one
Eitu,
I'm aware of is Ao Eitu, but could have
Ao
been
Eitu,
more, right?
but yeah, definitely. But Ao Eitu is probably the special one, but probably had a lot more. So and then Ao Eitu becomes the child of Tangaloa and Vaipopua, but like we all know that Tangaloa had many children, and it was the youngest one, I guess, from high-ranking children. And I think he
Yeah.
had four other older brothers. But that's kind of what I know
Yeah.
with Vaipopua. Unless there's something to you want to add?
No,
What do you
no,
think?
that's pretty much what I understand. What I want to contrast now is our Ha'amoa brothers and sisters agree with what you just said, right?
Okay.
Here's the distinction. Our Ha'amoa brothers and sisters in them say Vaipopua goes to Samoa to be with Tangalo because that's where he's from to have a child, right?
Okay.
The people from Niwa Toptapu say she never went to Ha'amoa.
Mm.
The people in Niwa Toptapu said she went to
Tongatap.
Tongatap.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she went there. And why did she go there? Because that's how, remember the Tokatufa practice?
Yes.
The women would go to Tangaloa. Tangaloa doesn't go and travel to all the women, that they come
Yeah.
over to him. And they
Yes.
came to Tongatapu because Vaipopua could have access to land and was given land to live on because Tangaloa was on Tongatapu.
Yeah.
So that's a big divide in the thinking right now, right?
Mm.
Because according to our Ha'amoa brothers and sisters, well, Tangaloa is from Ha'amoa because Langi is in the mountains of
Yes.
Ha'amoa,
A ridge
right?
or something, a mountain ridge.
Yes, and
And there's no
so
mountain,
that's
no mountains in Tongatapu,
in
only in
Tonga.
Manua. Yeah.
Yes, so that's where right off the bat there's already a divide in the discussion. But once again, when this is some of the reasons why I get a little bit like, I don't want to say frustrated because it's not really frustrated, but I kind of like, it's hard for me to take the Ha'amoa oral history seriously because they don't take the Tongan oral history seriously, right? They'll
Mm.
say, "Oh, well, Tangaloa is from Ha'amoa," but then you talk to the people from Niwa, they say, "No, she never went to Ha'amoa. She went to Tongatapu."
Yeah.
Because that's where she goes. But then we're told, no, you got to forget about that. Just listen to the story of Tangaloa being from Ha'amoa, but then their oral history says the Tangaloa title or name wasn't from the quote unquote Tangaloa. It was because Tangaloa liked the wife or the daughter of someone and gave a Tangaloa title to someone in exchange for the daughter or the wife.
Mm.
So how is that the Tangaloa bloodline when your oral history says it was in exchange for a wife? It sounds more to me when I hear that story, the Tokatufa tradition, where if Tangaloa said, "I like your daughter," right? And if you want me to have a child with your daughter, then your child will have the Tangaloa
Right.
name, that
Yes.
and the power and the influence, and that would
The
elevate
status.
you and your
Yes.
family.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
that fits that more than saying, "Oh, the actual Tangaloa came down and became a person in Ha'amoa." I don't know. I want to just walk
No,
through it
that's
and
good.
talk through some
Yeah,
of these things
that's
because
good.
you gotta sit through and talk through it and think it through, and you're like, yeah, I don't think Popua went to Ha'amoa,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Just
Mm.
thoughts there. Anything to add? Any thoughts?
No. I think this is a good discussion because, like what you said, right? If we can't, you're identifying the break off, but if we can't come to a understanding of each other's point of views, we're never gonna get to the origin. And like we always say, they always tell us go to the source. We've gone to the manua, right, and did the
Mm-hmm.
listen to all the oral history. Then we look at the thorough academic studies that was involved with Samoans and non-Samoans, in Manua. And then then they say, then we go ask the people in the Niotop Tapu. They will even say Vaipopua went to Tongatapu to have a child with Tanganloa, which is Ao Etu, which came. But then for some reasons the Manua or Ha'amoa are saying no, Tanganloa is in Ha'amoa. But we always say go back to what the people are saying. They're even saying that, and and that's right, and that's why we still can't get a consensus on our origin of our history, because we just going we're just kind of going everywhere. But this is a good platform that we're able to discuss, at least
Mm-hmm.
give our argument, and then let that be the judgment of what perspective people will take.
100%. 100% agreed. Let's come back and watch this highly produced Hollywood level
Let's go. Let's go. Let's
epic
go.
video.
Oh, I'm not hearing the sound, Tua.
Oh, sorry. I had to
You're good.
block the sound so that the commercial would go through.
All
Let
good.
me bring it back just a little bit.
Ai ku tamai, da ku nofo e ku tamai I fei.
Koe ha?
Ko hai e ku tamai,
O koe ke whiunga ta nofo?
kai ko fie 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 ko fe mapa ke ulo ko hai ku tamai.
Like every
O
situation,
ke ilo ai hopo
society
la
with children growing up with a
pom pom.
single parent home. Just a
Yeah.
simple thing.
Well, this is why single parent homes is not ideal.
Ah, ah,
This is not the ideal setup.
mm, mm.
Ke he fiafi o ku pau. Nā ku ilo te ai ape. O ke ilo ki makehe.
Whee!
O ke ilo o wha I kehe koe. O ku whaka apa I kehe koe kainga. Koe alo koe o Tangaloa. Ko Tangaloa, koe o tua. Iyo, koe alo koe o Tangaloa. Koe o tua o awhio I he langi. Koe o tua o ne whakatupu e mea koto ape. Koe o tua o ne whoake mea koto ape. Whoake mea kai koto ape.
Hana ke ianga tala mai ki mo.
E nā
See, and this is where things get interesting.
Yes, very
Where
interesting.
did the idea that Tangaloa was a god, where did that idea come from? because it even had a little bit of foothold in Tonga.
Yeah.
Right. That did not come from the Tongan oral history. That came from European perception of
Mhm.
where Tangaloa came from, right? When they wrote down the records of
Yeah.
trying to record the oral history, who is Tangaloa? Oh, he's a great chief. He's a great man. Oh, where did he live? Oh, he lived on Langi. And if you
Yeah.
just do a very simple analysis, Langi is heaven or sky, but Langi is also a residence, a place to live.
Mm.
And
Interesting.
so,
No,
yeah,
no, I was gonna say to that right. This is probably the confusion that a lot of people are having, that they were thinking it's a godlike being, but that's what see, and that's the thing, right? People always refer if you people always refer people, most powerful people or individuals that have a lot of influence, they
as a
from a
god.
western, yes, as a western society, they always refer them as a god because they control everything that man can do, so that's why our history gets a little tainted, and that's why we're here just to say that it's more of a title. It's a person being has flesh and bones like all of us. The only difference is it had a title that it was passed on within the same family, and that's the thing. Tangaloa is so old that we don't know if maybe, because we understand that the Tuitonga family was always within father and son, and then like the little nuances that there was a generation, we talked about Talatama not having children, right? And then there's
Mhm.
the new that became, right? We know those new nuances, but the Tangaloa being so old, we just don't really know too much of those kind of details and stuff.
Details.
Like, if it was always within the same family kind of thing, or if it kind of just moved around a little bit. But I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that's our idea of Tangaloa being a title, and you know this kind of content can kind of confuse people thinking it was kind of like a god. But I don't know if you had anything else to.
No, I agree. I mean, we want to walk through this and think it through and
Mhm.
talk it through. Because in Tongan oral history, Tangaloa was not a god, and we have a specific place that was his residence.
Mhm.
And there was a logic and a pattern that the Tuitongas adopted in all their settlements,
Mm.
right? And this is why the Tuitongas residence was called Langi,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like these are all little like evidences that you have to kind of be aware of and track to help you navigate the oral history and help
Mm.
you find the ruins and the physical representation of the history through the settlements and the ruins and the events and the names of the places.
Yeah.
We don't find any of that really in anywhere else in Polynesia,
Mm.
right? And in Ha'amoa, that's not something that we find, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this Tuitonga lived here for how many, and these are the places that they stayed, then they moved here. We don't have a lot of that for the Tuimanua or anything,
Yeah.
besides some people saying apparently that there was an empire and that everything originated from them. Well, if it's just a story from your end, then anyone else's story can be just as valid.
Mm. Mm.
Okay. Let's swing back here.
Au ilo te ke vilitaki. Kana gostalatu te ke liaki au.
Kana tempe ki
Nau ilo te ke liaki pe kai ke
Ko
whahomai.
whimau ke whairoaki pa mo kamai. Ko whimau ke whairoaki pa mo tangaloa.
Te ke kaka koe ki langi.
See, climb
Te
to
ke
the
kaka
sky.
ki langi.
Te warau ki
Te
langi.
ke kaka ki langi.
Te kakau ki langi. Ke
Te
warau
ke
whairoaki pa
kaka
mo
ki langi.
Hape mea te whai ke waua ke kamai. Ko pau ke whakahoka mea ko ia.
Ko pau ke kaka koe ki langi.
Te kaka. Ko hape mea te
Ko pau
whai ke
ke-
wau ke kamai. Ko pau ke whai mea ko ia.
Ko pau ke kaka ki langi. Te ke kaka he fuutoa. Te ke
Ko pau
kaka ki langi. Te ke tok whailoa ke mo tangaloa.
Kaore vangi. Ke pēka pa te au ki aite ni hanga ilo i kono whohau.
O kua whio i koe tangaloa. O ku talitali me ke a koe. Ko kou ilo whakapapau. Ke taimi te ke mātai ki ai. Te ke ilo pe koe. Tangaloa ai.
Ko pape ke wau ku tapai.
You go, Aho Etu. You go, buddy. You climb that toa tree.
Shh, Mari.
O e tangi popua. Mau e siya nake kaka. Hey.
Alo ai pe mo ki ka hoa.
Eh.
Mari.
Look at Futoai. That's the
Oh,
toa
yeah.
tree he's gonna climb. Any comments, any thoughts on anything here?
Now that I'm looking properly, this thing was created by that Coconut TV. I've seen some of their stuff. I haven't been a fan of some of their that Coconut TV
The production.
for their production, and not only that, they put like articles too that don't make sense. It's a very palangi viewed, and that's why I'm not surprised that they made this because they take the palangi viewed that most most people think that is accurate. So it's just so funny that he's climbing a toa tree to try to get to
To heaven.
Langi, try to get to Langi to meet Taaloa. But we all know that, right? Getting to Langi is the resident. Toa is the definition of you're kind of climbing up to Alangi because Alangi is elevated above the ground, and the Toa is kind of where you kind of enter through the lagoon. I think that's what Fale kind of explained, and that's called a
Yes.
Toa. So Toa, that's what it means. It's not that Toa tree you climb up. Come on, it's just so funny, but but it's
Yeah.
just it's like a little tickle. Just makes me a little tickle.
Yes. So yeah,
When I
and this
see
is
this.
I think we don't have I think we covered the most important parts for that video. This is what I want to do now because the Toa, according to oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Oh, I was like, dude, where is this thing? The Toa is so when it says that Tangaloa came down on the Toa tree and Aho
Yeah.
Etu came up, was told to go up. So let me blow this up a little bit more. So this is an article from the Vita Fares website, and right here, right?
Mm.
So when the first quote unquote Tongans, right? But it's
Yeah.
really our founding fathers, which is Tangaloa, Maui, and Taula.
Yeah.
When they first came to Tonga, let me see if we have a map here of okay, Ewa. So when they first came, they landed on Ata Island,
Correct.
right? And Ata is like first landing. That's supposedly the interpretation of it. They landed here. Then they eventually found Tongatapu. And when they came to Tongatapu, they landed here close to Ohole Beach and Laulea Beach. And they called that place Hokula, which is translated as a safe place, where
Mm.
they first landed and they first lived there. And this is the first Maui, the first Tangaloa, and the
Correct.
Taula, which is the chiefs. Then eventually, they spread out to different parts of Tongatapu, right?
Mhm.
Lotolangi right here is where Tangaloa went, and it was the highest point on Tongatapu. Lolofonua, that's where Maui went. That's why the Hatmonga Maui is built over there, because on the eastern side, that's where Maui and his clan settled. And then on the western side, which is Pulotu to the west, because that's where heaven is. When you die, you go to Pulotu, where the sun sets. That's where the priestly clan went. Okay,
Mhm.
so that's the setting of where we say where Tangaloa and Maui come and settled on Tongatapu. Now, they live right here in Lotolangi. Now we'll scroll down here. That's where Tangaloa lived. So here are some spots. Point number one is Popua. That place is called Popua to this day,
Yes.
right? Excuse me.
Most likely an indication of Vaipopua kind of stain, kind of right,
Correct.
maybe.
When
Yeah,
she left the Niwas
to
or
come in
Niwa
kind of.
Tapu, she came and lived here. Now, why here? Right?
Mm.
Because right across in the lagoon
Yeah.
is Langi or Tapuhia, where Tangaloa lived.
Lord reserves. Yeah.
Right? So that's number one. Number two, that's where Ahoetu builds his Langi.
Yeah.
And it's called Hifo Me Langi.
Mm.
Right? So
Mm.
that's because he's not going to stay where Tangaloa stayed. He comes and stays here and builds. That's the first settlement of the Tuitonga.
Mhm.
Then there's a little island right here in between. It's called Mataaho Island, formerly known as Talakite Island. Important aspects of Tongan history. Now, it could be because that's like a stopping place before you go to Langi or to
Langi.
Tapuhia, could be on that island. But the important thing is, let me see here. Okay, let me come back. When you come to Langi or to Tapuhia, this little area down here, when you cross here on a boat, the reference to the toa tree is where there was a little grove area where toa trees grew.
Mm. Mm.
And you would climb up to go to Langi. You walk by those grove, we just call it a grove or whatever, of
Yeah.
toa trees, and you come up to Tapuhia and to Langi. So when Popua was first brought to Tangaloa, he came down and met her first down there at that entry point going up. So when they say Tangaloa came down from Langi on a
Mm.
toa tree, that's identifying that specific location that he met
Oh, yeah.
Popua.
Popua.
Popua. And that is one of the reasons why maybe Popua tells him to go back, because that is the area that Tangaloa met her.
Mm.
And maybe that is one of the quote unquote signs is you have to go back up there. So if Tangaloa or anyone asks you who you are and what you're here is, you can say, Popua told me to come up here. My mother,
Yeah.
right, who knows Tangaloa, and they met at that location, says, I'm here and I'm
Yeah.
coming through this location because of my mother's direction. And,
Yeah.
and Tangaloa maybe would have recognized that.
Yes. Yeah.
Any thoughts or comments on that, Masi?
No, I know there's another common like that. If you keep that photo, because there's a ata, kind of above over
Yeah.
here. People always think that that's where they landed, but we believe that I think it's like atata. They kind of
Yeah,
call
they
it
call it
now,
atata. Yeah.
but yeah, that's probably that's not what we subscribe to. We kind of go with the more accurate information of ata being from from below, right? Just more south of Ewa. That's been the first landing spot, and then coming up to that first place where David Afale mentioned is Hokula of the founding
Yeah.
fathers of the Tongan, right? The Tongan or the Polynesian nation, right? In
Yeah.
Hokula there, then they kind of spread it
In
out with
this area. Yeah.
yes. That's all. I just wanted to mention kind of that, just some of the different ideas that people will run into.
No, 100%. And then I want to come down to, let me see. See right here, there are several locations in Tonga, the first Tu'i-Tonga settlement, that were named and patterned after Langi, Tangaloa settlement or residence. These names are Langi,
Mm.
right? Exactly where he lived.
Yeah.
Ahau, which is a reference back to Vaihi. Toa and Fetoa, which is the places where the toa trees grew at the residence
Yeah, okay, around the Langi.
of Tangaloa.
Mm.
So that's the reference to the toa tree.
Mm.
It's not, oh, climb the toa tree and go to heaven. No, it was a specific location. And many of the areas of the Tu'i-Tonga settlement had all these names in it.
Mm.
So whenever a Tu'i-Tonga would set up a new settlement, certain parts of the Tu'i-Tonga settlement were named after the specific locations where Tangaloa lived. And this is what I'm talking about. To me, that's evidence that Tangaloa lived on Tongatapu and that the Tu'i-Tonga was the only heir of Tangaloa.
Yeah.
Because look at the patterns. They kept all the names of the specific locations from Tangaloa's residence.
Mm.
In
Mm.
every location, the Tu'i-Tonga, they just didn't just set it up as, oh, just build me a mound. No.
Yeah.
Much like the Furitaunga and the Taumafa Kava, here's the pattern.
Mm.
We need to name these places. Langi, obviously, where the Tu'i-Tonga's residence is going to be. And just like, you know, Feretoa or Fetoa was
Yeah.
located, you know, north of Langi, we're going to call a place there. It's going to be called Feretoa. This place is going to be called Pangai. This place is going to be called, all the different
Yeah.
names was a duplication of the pattern from how Tangaloa's residence was set up.
Mm.
Now, where in Ha'amoa can we find such things?
Mm.
I'm not aware of any.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, unless someone can show us. But this is the kind of evidence that we're talking about, right? That kind of makes us think when we see this type of structure and rigid way of behaving, like the Taumafakava, right? Like the Polo Polo, like the Inasi, that lasts over thousands of years, you say, hey, that seems like a center of power. That seems like a unified leader. That seems like a nation.
Mm.
But yeah, anything to comment on that, Masi, or any thoughts on that?
No, interesting. I'm seeing number 14, Tefisi. You're right.
Yeah.
It was like that's. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that or that location of? I don't know. Tefisi. What's your? Is that reference to Fiji? That's. I don't know. That's a. Because I always thought the way of calling Fiji was Tefisi. So I was like, oh, I'm just curious if.
Yeah, I mean, and that's you know, yeah, I mean that could be the name or some kind of relation to it, and that's where maybe Fiji gets its name from. I don't know. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking because you know, Fiji's always had a, because I always think it was always like a common place where even maybe the Tangaloa kind of came, and that's kind of where, you know, we kind of had our association with, especially in the Tu'i-Tonga, but even Tangaloa was some of their
Was that there was a place
women,
at Tangaloa's
ye-
residence that was called
yes.
Tefisi.
Tefisi. Like, you know, there had to be some kind of connection, and that's why even up to now there's a special relationship with Fisi with Tongan, you know, Tongan ceremonies and stuff, and also vice versa, and especially in the Lau Island. So that's all. I was just curious, oh, Tefisi.
Yeah,
You know, I've probably seen it before, but it's been a while. But yeah, I just was curious about that.
yeah. I mean, that's those are all little crumbs of evidence that when you put it individually, not very convincing, right?
Yeah.
But when you bring them all together, to me, it's the strongest evidence of where Tangaloa would have resided.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have this map right here, right here once again, right? Aha, or this is where the priestly clan went. This is where Tangaloa went. This is
Mhm.
where Maui went, right? So this is where Tangaloa resided. When Aho Etu becomes the Tuitonga, he goes to Tonga. This place was called Tonga,
Yes,
right? That was the first settlement.
correct.
Then when they went here, they changed the name of this place from Tonga to Tuku Tonga
Because
because
they're
they
leaving.
moved. And
Yes.
then Tariki Tonga, number two, the second settlement was called Tariki Tonga,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then we go 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are the different, at least that we know of. There could have been more, but we know of at least 6 major settlements of the Tuitonga moving throughout Tonga Tapu.
No, and that's see, and this is what, like, when how A2 takes control, the transitions happen. He's in control as the Tui Tonga, right? He names it the first place as Tonga, and then he's Tuhu Tonga, going to Tari Tonga. That's where the right. That's where the people reference of Tonga being like Tonga, because we're all everyone's subject. Everyone is
Yes,
subjected to the Tui Tonga. So
yes.
you know,
The
it's just
most southern portion of
yes,
the Polynesian Empire was the capital, which is why
correct,
Tonga is the cardinal direction.
correct, correct.
Yeah.
So that's all. That's kind of like my comment there.
So we'll just kind of walk through Tevita Fale's kind of commentary on the first Tuitonga settlement,
Okay.
right? We'll probably have more in-depth discussions with Tevita Fale on this. So there were 3 Tuitongas that lived in Tonga, right? In
Okay.
Tonga, that when they go out, and that was Aho Etu, Lolo Fakangalo, right? And Fanga One
Mm,
One. Fanga One One is the one who moved it
move it.
from Tonga or Tukutonga to Tariki Tonga,
Yeah.
right?
And
Moved
that's
the
all the
settlement
way.
from
That's
Tonga to
from
Tariki Tonga.
and that's all the way from central, right, all the way east, because they go to the number
Yeah,
2, which is all the way out
from
east.
here to here.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Then it says there were several locations in Tonga, or this is once again all the different locations of the first Tuitonga settlement that were named or patterned after Langi, which is these names we've already talked about. Important events that happened in Tonga. Aho Etu's Langi was named Hifo Me Langi. In the mid 1700s, Tuitonga Pau's sister, Siulongo ki Popua, settled on Hifo Me Langi.
Mm,
Siulongo ki Popua wanted Siu Mafua Uta's name, or Lomu Eiki's daughter, right? And
that's
we're
it.
familiar with Lomu
Yep.
Eiki. So they exchanged names. Siulongo ki Popua became Siu Mafua Uta, and Siu Mafua Uta became Siulongo ki Popua. Very strange, right?
Mm,
Now we're
mm.
changing names. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of interesting.
And that is very very interesting, Tua, because right, the reasons that we understand is just because it was just right. It's such a achy thing. I want your name. Let's just switch name with another Aki, which is the right Alomu Aki's daughter, and they just switch
Yeah.
name. I just feel like there's such a achy behavior.
Yeah.
I don't
I
feel
like
like in
your
those
name. Let's
days,
switch it.
you know, I don't think in those days, just the regular folks will worry about names, because life is not easy. But when you're in a high rank, you think about you're not thinking of survival. You can think of these little nuances of things. You're like,
That's what we
you
call
know
the
what,
first world problems, right?
first world problem. I just find
when
that
you're
so funny.
when
Yeah,
you're the princess and you don't gotta worry about getting killed, you don't gotta worry about food, you don't
yeah.
gotta what am I preoccupied with? I like that name better than my name. Can we switch names? First world problems.
First world problems. That's so funny. Did you want me to go on with the reading tour with the next two
Yeah,
paragraphs?
read these next 2 paragraphs here.
Okay, so when Tui Tonga Fanga One One left Tonga, Tonga was renamed Tuku Tonga, which is the settlement number 2 we kind of talked about in the map. Oh no, he renamed it Tuku
Then
Tonga.
one.
That's the
Yeah.
first.
And then we're
Leaving,
going to Tariki Tonga.
correct. So Tuku Tonga, a name this location has retained to this day. In 1942, Aho Etu's Langi, Hifo Me Langi, was dismantled and the materials were used to build Fawa Wharf. Later, all remaining materials were used to fill in Fagafanua's residence in Maufanga, and the residence was named Siu Mafua Uta. Interesting.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah? And
So
even that name is still the residence of
to
the.
today, to this day. And
Okay.
that is the current speaker of the house in
Residence,
Tonga,
correct. In
his
Tonga.
residence. And it's named after Siu Mafua Uta, who settled at Hifo residence.
Mm,
And
mm,
unfortunately, because back then we were thought of as, savages, not being a sophisticated culture, not having ruins, that we were
yeah.
just,
Mm,
hunter gatherers and maybe a little bit of farming. They see all these stones and they don't say, oh, that would be the equivalent of, from our perspective, needing to build a house or a city and you go and dismantle the pyramids in Egypt, right?
yeah. 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 No, and too, remember we went and we saw the ruins of the Mayans. Remember in Mexico? That's what exactly they were doing. They didn't think these rocks or pyramids were
Oh
like
yeah, when we went on the cruise,
the
right?
cruise. We
And
went to the
they went and settled in that town and they
yes,
built their homes out of
houses.
the ruins.
Yes. So obviously, people just if you just don't know and you feel like you think, so lowly you don't know the history, people just go and just say, oh, just use it to whatever. But man, because I was just thinking, man, it would have been awesome if that Langi was still standing
Still
there.
there.
But hey, the good thing is there's still remnants of it in Fafanua's residence, and they
Yeah.
still hold the name of Siu Mafua Uta, the name regarding that. So that's pretty, unfortunate, but we gotta at least we still have some remnants, eh? Because
Yeah.
and not only that,
Well,
we still have the other langis that we could maybe see. It was probably a replication of how Hifome Langi
how
used to
things
do
were done. Yeah.
in the
And
Baybayin.
this is why it's important, the names,
Mm,
right? And the stories behind the name. This
mm,
is what the Vitafare did to validate, or to at least go beyond a story, one story of how Eita was here, is relatively recent, more verifiable 1700s,
mm,
and oral history within the family
yeah.
that ties the names and the locations that exist to this day,
Mm,
right? And that's and to say, oh, Siulongo Kipopua, she moved back to Hifome Langi and resided there, but wanted to
mhm,
change her name, right? With Lomueki's
yeah.
daughter. But her name ended up, when they rebuilt the Whakafanua's residence, that's why they took that name and named that residence that, because that's, an ancestor of maybe
Yes.
Whakafanua's family
Yes.
and living there. And so that is how you go and piece together the oral history with physical locations and ruins to build a pattern or movement to give dates,
Mm,
potential dates to a kingly line,
yeah.
right? And that is why we have, it's up here, this list,
Yeah.
right? That's the difference between the Catholic list, where it's just names and stories, and the Vitafales list that's tied to physical
Ruins.
locations and multiple sets of oral history and
Yeah.
multiple genealogical stories within the families of the Tuitonga and their descendants to validate. That's
Yeah.
why these guys say, oh, the earliest Tuitonga Aho Etu is 950. De Vitafale says there could be more names that I've missed, but from what I've done so far, the
450.
latest was 450 AD, right?
Mm,
And then when we go and look at the LiDAR that was done, remember that one
yeah.
that we looked
Recent.
at
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
in the Fuamotu and the Toloa area, they say, hey guys, we have urbanization, and not only urbanization, but these settlements are 700 years older than what we thought that they
Yeah.
should be, right? And then when they go to La Paja and they do studies on the stone and the langis over there for Urakimata and Telea, they say the carbon dating and some of the activities here say that, Tuitonga Telea or Urakimata looks like it's 300 years earlier.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we're looking at a potential 1,000 year gap
Wow.
or earlier, right? Which would
Mhm.
potentially push it into
The
if
BC.
if we go BCs, yeah. Even if we were to use Tevita Fale's earliest date of 450, the 700 year push to the left alone would already put you in BC, and then the additional 300 years from Mu'a, right, from La Paja,
Yeah.
making it almost over 1,000 years. Even if we were to use the Catholic list and Baker's list, that would put it at least around the BC era.
Yeah. 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 No, it's funny too because I'm just thinking of like the names, right? How very detailed the names are, and the only reason why Tevita Fale was able to know that because there's only three people that can give you those little go like nuggets of like history because there's only either the Fafanua family or it's either our family or even the current Tui Otonga right now families
The
because those
Tupou
are
family, yeah.
the Tupoda families because those are the little information that not no one else were able to give that information if it didn't include these specific families that I said because that just shows you the connection and the amount of work because even if you come from the same family it takes a lot of work to dig up these information because we're talking about information that's going to take us way back, right? But then it still hold on to the names because people always have names but sometimes you don't know where those names come from, where you switch, but just to know that that Siu Longo Kipopua is still a name that's still used in the family today, right? It's
Yeah.
because and then we all know that it was a switch from Siu Longo Kipopua, who was Pau's daughter, with Siu Mafua Uta's name. So and that's
Yeah.
what the Whakapadua family still maintained to today. So I just say like on these intricacies of like very detailed information is very difficult and only a very few people are able to share this with others. So yeah, no, that's all.
Yeah, and I really want to reemphasize that this is why the stories that we bring and the concepts that we're bringing and the work that Tevita Fale has done, it's not just based off of one quote unquote oral history, right?
Mm,
Like, oh, tatu'i manua a tele toa sa ka toa blah blah blah. That's what. Okay, that's one oral history, but then it's tied to multiple genealogical stories. Then it's tied to ruins and a physical location.
mm,
Then it's tied to other residences in the area that maintain the name, right? And it's
mhm,
tied to, oh, the ruin was used to build a wharf and some other. There are multiple data points rather than just, oh, yeah, one story that we heard from somewhere, right? And so that is to me the difference between the Tuitonga and the Tangaloa origin story that we're discussing versus Tuimanua Empire and Tangaloa origin story that we hear from other origins, right?
yeah.
And especially when you hear that the Toka Tufa was a practice that was done throughout Polynesia, and people
Mm,
say, oh, yeah, we descend from Tangaloa. Well, guess what? There's descendants of Tangaloa in Hawaii, in Futuna, in Uvea, in Fiji, in wherever, because that's
Tahiti,
one of the
yeah.
ways that power was, yeah, Tahiti, all of that. So
Mhm,
it's we're not saying that the oral history is incorrect when we hear, oh, Tatu'i Manua is a descendant of Tangaloa. I was like, yeah, we agree with.
Yes.
There's a high probability
Yeah.
that is true. But just because you're a descendant of Tangaloa doesn't mean that you're the heir of Tangaloa,
Mm,
right? And that
mm.
you maintained the center of the empire, or you governed over the empire that Tangaloa built, and so forth. That's the nuance that we're talking about.
Yes. No, and just to add on to what you were saying, because you're a descendant, there's a possibility if these other people don't make it to adulthood or whatever, and if
You
they don't get that chance to, let's just say, if all the Tui Tangaloa descendants pass away, they're gonna go back to the one who was that lady that came from from Upolo or
yeah,
from Haamoa or from Manua.
that's going to be
Let's
the
say
heir.
we're gonna send somebody and ask to bring this offspring that Tangaloa had with his family, bring it over to be the heir of the Tangaloa clan or the Tangaloa empire kind of thing. So that's how it was. They were just right, and then that's one adoption, and that's one thing that the Tuitonga were smart when they did this whole transition. It's like Tangaloa started this thing of having heirs throughout all of Polynesia. Let's continue that. Let's continue that
Yeah,
practice of the Togatufa, right? Because it kept going throughout pretty much all of the Tuitonga's timelines of just holding, maintaining power through the Togatufa practice. So I'm just saying that, see, like all these nuances, that if you can able to just understand that we were a Polynesian nation and this is how they structured power, which is very different and unique compared to other societies, that's what the Tangaloa adopted from. I mean, that's
yeah,
what the Tuitonga adopted from the Tangaloa. So that's
and
just kind
and
of
and
my
I no,
thing
I
there.
100% agreed. And that position that you're expressing is confirmed by many other islands in Polynesia
Mm,
that say that, right?
mm,
There are other islands in Polynesia, in the Polynesian Empire, who said, oh, yeah, the Tuitonga had a child with one of our high chief's daughters
mm,
and eventually was picked to be the Tuitonga and went to Tonga,
mm.
right? Like that's oral history that we've heard from Xiao Ilayu, and he
Yeah.
heard it straight from multiple people in Polynesia that said that. The other thing too is the Matai system and the rotation of power and decentralization of power was not unique to Samoa or to Haamoa.
Yes, it wasn't.
That happened throughout Polynesia in
Yeah.
different areas. What was
Mm.
the unique thing? What was so that
They
system
recycled it. Yeah.
was not unique to Haamoa. It was all over Polynesia. What was the one unique thing? On Tongatapu was the consolidation of power. That was the
Yeah.
only place where power was consolidated. Throughout the rest of Polynesia, until Kamehameha unified Hawaii very late in the
Much
game,
later.
and with
Yes.
contact with Westerners and the Polynesian Empire collapsing, that is an unusual one. And even all the research that we've looked at, every academic seems to agree Tonga was uniquely able to consolidate power and to unite a string of islands. That was one thing they can only attribute to Tonga. And that's what we're saying. The reason why is Tangaloa consolidated power on Tongatapu, and the Tuitonga consolidated power on Tongatapu. And they made sure everywhere else decentralized power so
Mm.
that it would help them and their governance and to maintain order and structure through the empire. So I think those are, I mean, when you just look at the big picture, I don't know, people can say we're biased, but it's hard to deny the picture that starts to paint itself when you put all the little data points from all over the place. Any
Yeah.
thoughts on
No.
that, Masi?
Yeah. Just to add on, because I do probably agree with Shasi Ilayu that many Polynesians did what the Samoans did with the whole. He said, like, throughout Polynesia, everyone, there was a recycle of chiefs, so everyone had a turn to be a chief from certain powerful clans in a certain island. But the
Families,
only
yeah.
thing, yes, the only thing that was unique and different was in Tongatapu, that it just stayed within the same family. That's the centralizing and holding on to power. While everyone else in Polynesia had a turn to be a chief in all the islands. So that's pretty common practice. And what Samoa did, the thing about the Matai system in Samoa is just because it's lasted for so long, because it's right. It helps when you're not colonized, right? Samoa's the only few islands that when they were colonized, they actually maintained independence after driving out the British forces that were the New Zealand flag was kind of holding for. So we can get to see that Matai system practice. A lot of the islands, it's really difficult to see that Matai system really function because right, it's a different order and stuff. So but from what Siashi Ilayu kind of mentioned throughout all the other islands, a lot of it was recycled names of chiefs that all had a turn to be chiefs, and that's how you kind of maybe maintain power too from the other islands. Every prominent family will have a turn to be a chief,
Yeah.
but in Tonga was the only outlier that it didn't run like that. It just stayed between the same family, right?
Yeah. No,
So
100%. There's one other thing I want to mention, and we were just about to close, but I'm gonna bring this up one more time. And this was primarily driven by a comment of the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu took over Tonga, conquered the Tu'itonga and the Tu'ihatakalaua, and the Matai system is what you have today. The Matapule system, right,
yeah.
is what you have today, and that's kind of true.
Hmm.
But that type of comment kind of solidifies a poor understanding on how the kingly lines came to be and the relationship of these kingly lines. These are kingly lines that did not come out of revolt or whatever, right?
Yes.
It was, if you want to call it reformation or amendments to the Constitution, whatever kind of current term you want to call it, it was a restructuring of the government, peaceful restructuring, and it kind of morphed to different things. But once again, you have the Tuitonga, right, and the
Mhm.
Farefa, also known as Kauhala Uta. That is the supreme power holder in Tonga, right?
Mm.
Then after a series of assassinations based off of those things that happened, Kaulufonua structures and reorganizes the Falefa, and he creates the Tu'iha Takalaua and gives him a Falefa, right? So he creates it. It's not that his brother challenged Kaulufonua Fekai and created a new kingly line. It's like, no, no, no. Kaulufonua organized
Correct.
and created a new kingly line. And that became the Tu'iha Takalaua, who took care of all the managerial and administrative things of the empire, but the Tu'itonga maintained the
Correct.
spiritual and the high ranking, right? The
Yeah.
heir.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu, right?
Yeah.
After many generations of the Tu'iha Takalaua, the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu decides to make one of his sons. One son becomes the heir of the Tu'iha Takalaua. Another son, he creates the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu, right?
Yeah.
But doesn't give them a farefa like the Tu'iha Takalaua, right?
Yes.
This is where the Matai system is created,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that Matai system eventually allows Tupo the first, who
Correct.
could not have inherited this title or this title. It creates an opportunity for Tupo the first, who's cousins with the Tu'itonga, same
Yeah.
family, who are cousins, to consolidate some political and military power. And then once he does it, guess what? What does he do, Masi, with the structure?
Yeah. When he has power and consolidated power in Tonga, he goes back to the ways of the Tui Hatagalawa and the Tui Tonga way of passing power, right? Or passing the title.
Yeah, 100%. 100% agree with that. And so do we have the system of the Matapules from Samoa, or is this the Samoan system or the Ha'amoa system? Kind of, because the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu doesn't necessarily have the bloodline of the Tu'itonga. They're related, but it's not a father to son, father to son.
Yeah.
So the Matapules are not Eiki, and this is where there's an interesting definition that Xiaoxi Ilayu brings. When the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu is created, all of a sudden there's two definitions of Eiki, right?
Yeah.
The traditional definition of Eiki is how close is your blood to the Tu'itonga, right?
Yeah.
And then with the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu, because it's 3 lines away and it's the lowest
Yeah.
kingly line, Eiki is, do you have a title?
Mm.
A matai. Do you have a title? And this title can be bestowed upon you. You don't have to have a blood link of thousands of years. You can be voted into it. And so
Correct.
2 versions of Eiki are created.
Yes. And there was many titles, very old titles, especially on the Hake side, that were not elevated because, like I said, Tupo the first, when he was creating the whole constitution, because if they were just Eiki enough to have the title, he just elevated them to be the whole Eiki moving forward under the new modern constitutional
Structure.
monarchy structure.
Yeah.
So that makes perfectly sense with the 2 Eiki definition by Xiaoxi Ilayu.
And then to just top it off, right? Because people goes, oh, the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu, right, conquered the Tu'itonga. Not the case. And in fact, the last Tu'itonga helps the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu, Tupo the first, much like the restructuring that happens here, right? In the Tu'itonga to the Tu'iha'atakalaua and the Tu'iha'atakalaua to the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu, the last Tu'itonga does a restructuring that strengthens the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu, and that is giving him a taumafakava, because this kingly line does not have a taumafakava. They only have a ilokava, which nobles have a ilokava.
Yes.
Right? But not their Eiki bloodline. You have to have this bloodline to have a taumafakava or a puritaunga. But Laufini Tonga gives it to Po the First and establishes him to move forward.
No, and that's what really, if you think about it deeply, and I don't think it's emphasized enough, just within our history in Polynesian history, and even in Tonga now, that how significant that was to give a taumafakawa to the Tupo family, because that's really what's probably helped a lot to maintain peace in Tonga today.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, let's just say if they had no taumafakawa, and let's just say it was a ilokawa, I don't know if we will have a Tonga today, Tua.
No, I don't believe we
Tonga
would.
will probably be a United Kingdom Tonga.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I agree 100%, Masi. Because here's the thing that's interesting. Number one, Laufiri Tonga did fight with Tupo the First, right? In Velata. But this is the interesting thing. Laufiri Tonga was not the Tu'itonga.
Yeah.
This was a year before he becomes the Tu'itonga.
Oh, that's
but once he, so when people say, oh, he defeated the Tu'itonga, no, he defeated a young chief who eventually becomes the Tu'itonga. He never defeated the Tu'itonga. And then what's interesting is when Laufiri Tonga becomes the Tu'itonga, he doesn't seem to pursue military power. And why is that? Because with this separation that happened maybe 1,000 years before Laufiri Tonga, right?
Yeah.
The Tu'itonga did not govern through military power. It was through bloodline and priesthood. You would want to call it almost like a priesthood because that's what made the Tu'itonga special, was the religious aspect of maintaining power. Because the administrative and the military was given off to the Tu'ihatakalaua and eventually to the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu. This is why Laufini Tonga, once he becomes Tu'i Tonga, he never goes into military conquest.
Yeah. He's just practicing of what his forefathers have always done.
Yeah. And the role. And I think
Yeah.
how interesting, and I just thought of this now, Masi,
Mm.
how interesting of a name.
Laufini Tonga.
Like, yeah. Because who, in my mind, who does he choose? Does he choose personal power? Does he choose personal gain? He chooses Tonga and
Laufini
gives
Tonga.
Tupou the First the ability to maintain Tonga's independence. Because I agree with you 100%. I don't think Tonga would have remained independent if he didn't do that to Tupou the First. Because even with Tupou the Second and even with Queen Salote,
Yeah.
the Tupou family was on thin ice. They were
Yeah.
barely holding Tonga together. This is why the marriage with Tungi, which is
Yeah.
basically the heir of the Tu'ihatakalaua line,
Correct.
strengthened the Tu'ikanukupolu because they were having a hard time keeping
Yeah.
power. But that marriage strengthened their position and brought Tu'ihatakalaua allies into the fold and the bloodline closer to the Tuitonga. So it was just, this is all one family, and those marriages strengthened it and helped Tonga remain independent to this day. So this idea that it was a foreign Ha'amoa influence and power and domination is what allowed Tonga to remain independent, a small part of the bigger picture, in my opinion.
Yeah, and
Any
just add on.
comments before we go to a question here, Masi?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking too. With the Tu'ikanupuru bloodline, it wasn't enough because after Tupou the First, you know how you said it was running thin with Tupou the Second and Tupou, Queen Salote being the third, and then until she married. Because Tupou the First, he was, it was not only his bloodline, but the way he, his military strategy. He was kind of respected and
Visionary, right? Yeah.
visionary. He was kind of well beyond his time, especially with negotiating non-Tongans, outsiders. So he kind of had a
And he
little.
lived
It
for
was
so long. And
lived
he
for so
lived for
long.
so long.
Lived for so long. I think he didn't die till his 90s, but
Yeah.
he still had that connection and relationship and encounters with the Tui Tonga and the whole transition, right? And to me, it just reminded me that even the Tuikangpolu, that the bloodline really is important, right? Because the Tuikangpolu
Yeah.
bloodline, once the Tubo the First passed away, right? Then you get this new one, and you're like, okay, well, what you haven't really done much. It's just you've been passed down to you. You
You
just had the
got to
bloodline.
power by election. Why did we switch
Yeah,
to father, son, or
yeah,
grandson, or whatever?
grandson.
Like, this is very turbulent times.
Yes, and then right, Queen Salote marries the descendants of the Tu'ihatagalawa, which goes to Tungi, which strengthens, and that's the bloodline that's kind of in ruling Tonga today. But that's the bloodline Tu'ihatagalawa, which is much closer than the Tuikangpolu to the Tui Tonga, which brings peace
Yeah.
and prosperity, right?
So, well,
it's
and
funny.
here's the
It's funny.
interesting thing, Masi, and I just thought of this. How ironic. This is kind of interesting. How ironic is not only Laufiri Tonga's name, but under our traditional way of leadership, you can make the argument that it's not the Tu'ikanukupolu line that's in power now.
Mm,
Because remember, we talked about in the past, it goes from father to son, father to son.
correct.
With Queen Salote, it was a woman
Yeah,
who marries into the Tu'ihatakalaua, and it's the
yeah,
Tu'ihatakalaua son who becomes king. And in our
yeah,
traditional
yeah.
perspective, it's not the Tu'ikanukupolu line that's leading right now. It's the
Interesting.
Tu'ihatakalaua
Yes,
line that's
yes,
leading.
yes.
So even the position of, oh, it's the Tu'ikanukupolu, well, not under our historical way of viewing inheritance and power.
Mm,
Because you could, in our traditional way, like you mentioned it many times, Masi, the woman could come from wherever,
hmm
but it is the male inheritance of father to son, father to son.
Yeah.
maybe that's why they had to have Queen Salote marry Tungi. It was almost like there is no other option. Because if Queen Salote, the traditional line is father to son, but this one went from father or grandfather to daughter or whatever it was. In the traditional view of all of Tongan politics and family structure, whoever Queen Salote married, that family line would now be viewed as the family line that's now governing. And if she married someone else, that would weaken the Tupo family's position. So what is the only option really? Tungi. Because now, in a sense, it's no longer the Tu'ikanukupolu that's in power now. Tupo the fourth, in theory, is the Tu'ihatakalaua because he inherited from his father.
Yes. So I'm just thinking, if Tupo the first, because I'm just thinking, we went back in time, and if Tupo the second actually didn't have a daughter and it was a male, dang, that would be an interesting thing, right? Because there was really no high female ranking from the Tu'ihatakalaua side or even from that side. So, because there was already a lot of tensions and stuff, especially
It's
on
almost like Queen Salote had to be a woman to
That's what I'm saying. When you were
to bring
explaining
it
that, I'm
back.
like, it's so funny how God works sometimes. The little
Yeah.
miracles. Because when you're saying, because it was very turbulent from some of the histories I was just reading with Tupo the second, and then Queen Salote being, like what you said, being crowned in the middle of the night. But you know, she had to really marry Tu'ihatakalaua to bring stability to the Tu'ikanupolu line. But yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. I didn't think of it until we're having this
Yeah.
conversation that, you know what? If someone comes to me and says, oh, the Tu'ikanukupolu is ruling, I was like, no, it's not. It's actually
Yeah.
the Tu'ihatakalaua line that's ruling right now.
Yeah. No, that's good. Good discussion. Good discussion.
So we'll end with a question. We have some questions from online. There's a handful of questions. We haven't had the opportunity to get to it, but we'll finish with some questions with this question right here. So this is from Mo. Thank you for joining us. He says, question, what would have happened if they had killed the Tongan king during that battle in Samoa? Think there was a reason they did not kill him? Looking at Mariner book at the battles, how many warriors would have went to Samoa for revenge? What are your thoughts, Masi?
Ooh, I think Moy is talking about is it during the Talagai Faiki in
Yes.
Samoa and stuff? Ooh, if they did kill that Tuitonga, I think it would have been a continuation of the Tuitonga, whatever descendants or Talagai Faiki's descendants would literally probably continue the ill treatment of what Talagai Faiki was doing before. Because I think
they would have clamped down.
They would have clamped down, because not only that, I think because we have like oral history and stories, oral stories of what's that Kaulufonua. He goes on a rampage in
That's what it
military.
seems like. Yeah.
I think that would have just happened. They would have got somebody take care of the affairs in Tongatapu, while this descendant finds out that Talaga Faiki's been assassinated in Ha'amoa. They're gonna go and do like a military campaign, because Kalufonua did it when his father Tagalawa got assassinated. So right, so I think that would have happened, Moy, in my opinion, because we've had other Tuitongas that actually take a military campaign throughout Polynesia during that 5 generation away from Tongatapu. That's just me too. I don't know if you had anything else, or you think it would have been a different term, but I think it would have been a military campaign, not just in Samoa. I think throughout all of Polynesia. Because if you're already doing it for one, it's like might as well go in throughout Polynesia and do it amongst the other edges or spheres of the empire. I don't know if you had anything, Tua.
Yes, I do. I do want to do something, because this did come up on some of the conversations I've had online. right? Because I agree 100%. Okay.
Yeah.
What caused Kaulufonua Fekai to go on this military campaign? Assassination,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
when you have an assassination, you have to have a strong response, right? You
Yeah.
have to, because if not, you're going to lose control.
Yeah.
You're going to lose control. So a way to make sure is, yeah, you have to. And I think it was by design they didn't kill him,
Yes.
right? Because I think they knew you kill him, that's like the difference of, you know, beating up an American and taking some hostages and
Yeah.
negotiating, and you shooting a missile to the US. You
Yeah.
shoot a missile to the US, you're done. Wherever you are, you're done.
Yeah.
Right? But if you kidnap some Americans, we might say, hey, you better send them back, or we're gonna do sanctions, we're gonna do all kinds of stuff. You know, we might send some SEALs and stuff, but we're not gonna send the might of the US military on you,
Mm,
you know.
mm,
But if you
mm.
touch American soil or assassinate a high ranking or the president, trust me, it's not going to end good for you and your whole country and whatever. So I agree 100%. I think it was by design. And there's a reason why Talakai Faiki gave the response that he gave.
Yeah.
Marietoa. Does that sound like I'm scared for my life? I'm
Mm.
running for my life. It sounds like he's like, hey,
Not too
oh,
bad. Not too bad. You
not
got
too
some. You got
bad.
a fighting. You got a fighting
Yeah.
spirit. Yeah.
I thought you guys were just going to roll over. I respect that.
Yes.
Right? And then he says, he doesn't just say that. He says, I'm coming back. That's
Yeah.
the one thing that I think a lot of people forget. He not only says Marietoa, he says, I'll be back. But when I come back, I'm not going to oppress you. I'm going to
Yes.
come in a friendly. And I'm wondering, Masi, if that's why the Pule Mele mound is like Pule Lele, because
Yes.
now it's a
You know,
proper
that's a good way.
oversight rather than the oppressive thing that
Yes.
Talakai Faiki was doing, right?
Yes.
And here's the other thing. You kill Talakai Faiki, the next to Itonga is going to rally and he's going to come and kill you. But
Yeah.
since Talakai Faiki says, Marietoa, I'm good, when he goes back to Tonga, he's still the Tuitonga. He's still in charge. He's going to
Yeah.
tell everybody, we're not going to react.
Yeah.
I thought it was entertaining,
Yeah.
right? I actually thought highly of them. It is what it is. We'll come back, but we won't do anything. And here's the thing. Ha'amoa was not united enough to stop a
Exactly.
Tuitonga invasion.
Exactly.
They
I
couldn't
was.
they couldn't even agree on the Marietoa. Apparently, not even the two guys who led the revolt
It was the
got the
brothers.
title. It was another brother.
Yeah.
And there's other oral histories that say they weren't even Samoan guys, that they were from Tokelau or something.
Interesting. I did hear about that oral history and story about that. But I
Yeah.
was thinking too. It's it was if they it was smart because I feel like it was a good group, but I don't think it was like saying all of the because they say this partook in the island of Upolu. You're talking about Savai Upolu, who traditionally their women have married into the Tuitonga. I don't think all of the island was gonna support these two. Let's just say let's just say they killed the
Yeah.
Tuitonga. The descendants of the Tuitonga are gonna come. Let's just say all of Tongatapu, Haapai, Wava'u, Niwa, and a good portion in Upolu with families who've
That's what I
been
was gonna
married.
say.
There's no way he
Even
knew.
within Ha'amoa, there could have been
Yes,
enough support there to crush them.
if they were gonna to consolidate and grab a force and literally obliterate whoever assassinated or killed the Tuitonga, they were gonna be removed. But it was smart to have a little scuffle, show your strength, and let the Tuitonga live, because if you don't, you're gonna be wiped out. Because even in people think all of Ha'amoa was united. No, it was only a good group of certain prominent families, but not all of Ha'amoa. You're talking a place of Ha'amoa that's been married since the early beginnings of the Tuitonga, being married to families, that families still have that. connection. I'm pretty sure that families are gonna support their daughters' families and descendants to fight whoever, because, like I said, Polynesia was viewed as one people. And
Yeah.
what takes precedence even today, even when you get to family, what's very important is your family clan, where you come
Yeah.
from. That's like the presidents that who you back in today. But yeah, hey, good question
So
though, Moy.
yeah, I appreciate that. Now here's the other thing I wanted to mention. So there's Talakai Faiki the first, Talakai Faiki the second,
Mm,
right? And I don't know which one it was, but let's say it happens, even if we go with the latest one, Talakai Faiki the second, right?
mhm.
Now, not only does Talakai Faiki say he will return himself, but some of our brothers and sisters in Ha'amoa dispute that, right? They say that
Yeah,
when they kicked out Talakai Faiki, that the Tu'itonga never came back, okay? Which is not true. Which is not true because look at what happens. After the Talakai Faiki, look at who is this? Kaulufo Nua Fekai.
yeah,
And what do we know about where did Kaulufo Nua Fekai reside after he creates the Tu'iha Takalaua?
in Ha'amoa.
In Samoa.
Yeah,
So, and not only does he reside there, but Ha'avakafuhu, Pui Pui Kifatu, or Momo the third, and Kaulufo Nua the fourth, Tapu Osi is the one who brings it back to Tonga Tapu.
correct, correct. Full time,
So,
make it
yeah,
full time stay in Tongatapu. Yeah,
no, see, and this is, remember the comment that we read earlier? Oh, Ha'amoa has been independent all its history besides the 400 years that until they kicked out Talakai Faiki. I'm like, dude, after Talakai Faiki, Kaulufo Nua comes in
yeah,
and then lives in Ha'amoa for 4 or 5 generations before Tapu Osi returns.
correct.
This is the reason why it's in my perspective, and I think in yours, Masi, it's not a good way to think of our history to think the nation of Samoa, the nation of Tonga, right?
Mm,
The nation
mm.
of Tokelau or Tahiti or
Hawaii.
whatever.
Yeah,
You need to just get rid of all of that and just think the Polynesian nation. And when that little clan pushed back against the Tu'itonga, it wasn't Samoa and freeing all of Samoa. It
correct.
was one little group who pushed back on the Tu'itonga, and the Tu'itonga was impressed with their
Yes.
bravery and how they behaved. That he says, "Maria toa," right? When
Yeah.
I come back, and he says it, I will come back, but I won't come back to attack you and kill you. I'm just gonna come back because this is all mine. You're not gonna take this away from me,
Yes.
right?
And
But I
yeah,
respect you and what you did.
yes, and it's always in the name, Maria Toa, Maria Toa. What do
Yeah.
we do a Tongan when they react, or even a Samoan they react when we're impressed by somebody say Maria, Maria? You know what
Maria.
I mean? That's what
Yeah.
the Tui Tonga was impressed during that whole scuffle. It's like, dude, I didn't know you were like this, but I'm impressed. Maria Toa, which is the right, what one of the most kind of prestigious kind of main title holders in Samoa with the Maria Toa because of that. So hey,
Yeah.
it's always within the name, and it's still today with the way we express ourselves when we are surprised of someone going beyond their capabilities, or if they've done a really good performance.
Good job.
Right?
Yeah. And so that's why I think, see, like here, TK here makes a comment, all those kings have Samoan mothers, so that makes them Samoan. I will agree to the extent that Samoa is not really a nation, but think of it as a village,
Hmm.
right? Just like if one person on Tongatapu would marry another village, we're not saying that that village is its own independent nation. We're all one nation, but it's
Hmm.
two villages marrying each other.
Correct.
And that's the way to think of it. Don't think of it as Ha'amoa, independent nation, Tonga, and all the. It was the Polynesian Empire, and the Tu'itonga was not just marrying into Ha'amoa; they were marrying into Uvea, right? Futuna, Tokelau,
Hawaii,
Hawaii, Tahiti, all
Yeah.
over. They were marrying all over. So yeah,
Shoot, Tua, I'm just thinking if that was gonna happen, and let's just say what I told you, the Tongatapu guy, warriors, Ha'apai, Vava'u, and Niua were not enough, and even the some in Samoa. You're talking about a Tu'itonga that can get influence. They're gonna have more influence than Tuna and Fata to go to Fortuna and Uvea to grab more guys. To go to
yeah,
Tahiti, like the influence is so huge. Tuna and Fata are smart to let the Tu'itonga live. Like
yes,
it's almost like a suicide if you were
yeah.
gonna do that.
No, 100%. Which is it's I mean, it's quite interesting, you know?
Yeah.
It's understanding how to win.
Yes.
Killing the Tuitonga is an automatic loss, right?
Yes.
However, pushing back on him,
Yes.
that's
It
respected. I was
elevates.
like,
Yeah.
okay,
Your
okay.
family's been elevated because what?
Yeah,
You created a new title. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, looks like we're coming up on the 2 hour mark, Mussy. I appreciate all the comments online.
Right.
I think these are the type of conversations we need to have. We need to sit down, walk through some of the oral history, talk about the points like Aho Etu, right? And kind of just flesh out the ideas. When you say, oh, like, oh, Popua went to
Mm.
Tangaloa in Samoa, and that's how you know Aho Etu is, and then you go, well, hold on. Why don't we ask the people from Niwatoptapu what they say?
Mm.
And Niwatoptapu says, oh no, she went to Tongatapu. Right? And then let's look at all those different things and come together on it. Um Here's a question. Maybe there's one more question on it, but
All right. All right.
let's do this, Masi. Why does your oral history say Maui got his fishhook from Manua to pull up Tongatapu? Okay. So are you familiar
What's
with
your
this
thought?
story, Masi?
Yes, it's a very common one in the academic view of. I guess they said they get it from a Palangi book, I believe, or a diary,
Yes.
apparently of this
Of a
Palangi
guy who
writing down.
said, yeah,
Yeah, who went to the Tongans went to Manua and grabbed the Maui hook to pull up Tongatapu, which doesn't make any sense because we all know it's like Manua didn't exist. The first place that kind of started the origin was Tonga. So I don't know if there was misunderstanding by this Palangi guy of the diaries, but I know this has been a common thread amongst the academics of saying of the origin story of Tonga. But I don't know if you had anything else
yeah.
to
I
kind
mean,
of add.
first off, I mean, assuming that it was translated and understood correctly, right? Number two, why would the Tuitonga, quote unquote, give that knowledge to some random Palangi who wasn't even living? From what I understand, this Palangi was just passing through, and you're
Mm,
telling me that they're going to give them all that information? Very hard to believe. But even then, if we were to give the benefit of the doubt and say that this story was true, right?
yeah.
Xiaoxi Ilayu gives an interpretation of this story when we
Mm,
spoke with him. And according to Xiaoxi Ilayu, and Xiaoxi has gone and talked to people in Ha'amoa and all throughout Polynesia, he says the interpretation of this is the Tui Manua, which is related to the Tui Tonga. And according to him, even when he spoke to people in Ha'amoa and in Manua, it is relatively confirmed two things. A lot of the Tui Manua were women, surprisingly. And two, the Tui Tonga many times also held the Tui Manua,
yeah.
right? And then they say even Kaulu Fonua Fekai, when he went to Ha'amoa, his mother was from the Tui Manua line, and he inherited the Tui Manua. So that is the context to his potential interpretation is the Tui Manua, who is a relative of the Tui Tonga, had, some knowledge or some piece of information that the Tui Tonga wanted to be returned back to Tonga. And
Mm,
that story is kind of like a heriaki that explains that there was something in Manua that the Tui Manua had that the Tu'itonga wanted returned back to Tongatapu. Whether it was a piece of knowledge, whether it was an artifact, whether it was a daughter or a son or whatever, because their family, there was something that needed to be brought back, which may explain why the guy whose hook is stolen in many ways is betrayed by his wife. That don't make sense. Why is the wife betraying Tonga Fusifonua who has the hook? So once again, that further pushes the idea that that oral history is not necessarily a history of origin, but more a history of internal family dynamics. Some
Correct.
kind of internal family issue that was being settled between the Tu'itonga and the Tu'imanua. But it is by no means to say that Tu'imanua or the Tonga Fusifonua was the one who discovered Tonga, right? Like we've said, we looked at the studies. They've looked at the Tu'imanua ruins. They say Tu'imanua at best is 5, maybe 600 years old, and dates back only to around what 1500s, which is
That's
at
not long.
the highest
that's-
point of the Tu'itonga. So
Yeah,
that's
no, 'cause
my short answer for that.
yeah, no, and that makes that makes sense. But like to use it as a timeline of the origin to pull up Tongatapu, but like I said, Manua is still very young of people being there and running it. Tongatapu is by far, even if you want to go by scientific evidence, it is
Yes.
still the oldest population settlement in all of Polynesian people. It was in
Yeah,
Tongatapu.
in
There hadn't been
Nugureka.
any
Yeah.
in Nukureka. So I don't get that, and it's more correct. So it's just maybe because the timeline, people think it's the origin. It's like no. It's more accurate with a dispute, a close family dispute, and people are misinterpreting as the origin. And like and we all say every time with the oral history, people add a little thing here and there, and then you give it to somebody who's not familiar. They add what this makes sense to them, and people think
Yeah.
it's the it's
This-
it's
it-
the it's the founding of Tongatapu. But
Exactly.
that's why we have this podcast for us to discuss and explain.
discuss these things. I mean, this is
Yeah.
the same thing when people throw at us to pull the first letter to England and saying, "Oh, our progenitors come from Ha'amoa," and they say, "See, that's Tupo the first saying they originate from Ha'amoa." And I was like, or here's a radical idea: the Tu'ikanukupolus, a lot of their mothers, guess where they came from?
Mm.
Ha'amoa.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
when you have progenitors, you have a mother and a father.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you have multiple mothers, great grandmothers. And for you could say that Tupo the first is saying, yes, a lot of our mothers, grandmothers, great grandmothers, a lot of them come from Ha'amoa.
Yes.
So yeah, that's your progenitors. But if you're gonna come in and say, "Oh, he said progenitors," that means he says he comes from Ha'amoa. It's that same kind of thinking that goes to this story about the hook. Oh, see, the hook and taking it to Tonga, and that means they found Tonga. I said, well, that's one potential interpretation. But when you look at the evidence says, no, you can't. That's highly unlikely, right? And then the same thing with Tupo the first and the progenitors. When you look at the Tu'itonga line, and every time they do scientific studies, it doesn't get younger, it gets older and older.
Correct.
Then you would say, okay, the fathers seem to be from Tonga, but we all agree from genealogy and history from many places that the mothers come from Ha'amoa. You know what's probably then you can say a better interpretation of our progenitors come from Ha'amoa. A better interpretation is the female line many times for the Tu'ikanukupolo and myself and the Tu'itonga come from Ha'amoa.
Yeah.
See the difference?
Yeah.
See the difference when you put it in context with the scientific data and other oral history?
The oral
Then
history.
you can better interpret the story, right?
Mm.
Let's not be the Palangi who says, hey, where's Tangaloa from? and then the person goes, Tangaloa is from Langi. Don't be the, oh, Langi must be heaven. Tangaloa must be a god. Oh, perfect. No. Slow down. Ask a few more questions. When you say Langi, do you mean heaven? And does that make him a god? You asked that question a few times. She was like, oh, no. Go to Folaha, right?
Yeah.
Down in Folaha Vaini area, there's a place called Langi Tapuhia. And that's the reason why the Tuitongas also call their residences Langi. Not because their residence is in heaven, but it is in remembrance of their ancestor Tangaloa, who lived on Langi. Don't just get to a story and then run off. Slow down, have some conversations, think about it, and then say, what are the different ways we can look at this? What are the potential interpretations? And then, guys, go to a Kava session and ask some questions, have some conversations in person and see what happens, right? If you come with your little quick interpretation and you throw your idea out and your idea never did training, never did jujitsu, never did Muay Thai, never went and did some Dagestani wrestling, then don't be surprised when you throw out your interpretation and it gets choked out in 5 seconds. Anyways, any thoughts on that?
A curious question to just came up when you were
Yes.
speaking, and if you had to put your money, who is the longer? Because we just have an idea. We think we probably missed some Tuitonga names here and there. Who do you think? And Tangaloa, man, that's another animal of the names. Who do you think is the longer descendants that have been living, the Tuitonga or the Tangaloa clan? As you think, which one? If you had to bet, which one has been the longer?
If I had to bet, I would probably have to say Tuitonga right now. But the reality is I don't know because there's just so little data on the Tangaloa side. But I would just say Tuitonga just because almost 2,000 years or whatever is a really long time.
I don't know if anyone's gonna beat that in the.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
That's
that to me is really hard because if we were to give it the equal amount of time, that's 2000 BC, right? But then here's what's crazy. Remember, Masi, we looked at that video. That one guy made the argument that the Ha'amonga could be possibly tens of thousands of years old. And then when you put that into perspective, you're like,
that's mind blowing.
Oh, dang. Right?
Because we're thinking the Tangaloa are the first people who founded Tonga. We just don't know how long before that really transitioned to the Tuitonga of Ao'etu. But yeah, no, that's all. I was just curious too if you had your ideas, which titles lasted the longest in your opinion, the Tangaloa title or the Tuitonga title. So I'll probably go Tuitonga.
Oh, looks like our Samoan brothers and sisters have more questions. We'll entertain them. We'll go through them. I think it's worthwhile. I'll read this to you, Masi, and we got one other one.
Okay.
The construction of the Samoan fale, and this is Anon, ex-Anon. Yeah. Hey, appreciate it, Toko. Welcome to the Digital Kava session. He says the construction of the Samoan fale reflects the constellations. You can only see it from the inside looking up. I love you, Tokos, but chill on the disrespect. Alofas. What's your initial thoughts on that?
Construction of the Samoan fale reflects the constellation. You can only see it from the inside looking up. I've been to many fales, Exxon. Maybe if you can get a little bit, describing that exactly. My understanding is the lashings of the inside of the fale. If you can go a little bit more detail of what exactly the constellation, if you're inside looking up, I'm assuming to the roof of the fale, that'll be helpful. But I don't know. That's just me too. I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty much along what I would say.
Hey,
this is why we have these conversations.
To me,
maybe we need to look at that a little bit more.
Yes, and that's to me that's the more reference when you're looking inside. But if you can go more in detail, Exxon, that would be helpful. But yeah, I mean, this is just all discussion. No disrespect. It's just a conversation. That's all it is.
Not 100%, 100%. And that's the way I kind of feel too. Can't really respond to it. Maybe we look into it more. Trust me, I've searched online for a lot of studies. Haven't seen much on that.
Mm.
But there could be, would love to. If you have a video, what we would really love, Xanon, is if there's a video, we would love to react to it on the podcast. So if you have a link to a video, we'd love to watch it and
Or an
share it with
article.
everyone. Yeah,
Yeah,
or an article.
article.
We'd love to share it here so people can look at it and walk through that with their thoughts. And in regards to the disrespect, Sole, if you think we're being disrespectful, go and look on the comments and the responses online back to our position. I think we're being extremely gentlemanlike, right?
Very
And
gentle.
all we're doing is asking questions and saying, here is the evidence. Yeah, right. If we're laughing and having a good time, we're not trying to mock or be disrespectful. We're just having a good time. We're just discussing, and if you can't joke a little, then you're taking yourself a little too seriously, right?
Tua, I'm just thinking that maybe the the rugby league teams, Toa Samoa and Matimatonga, should not play each other because people will think that's
Too
being
disrespectful.
disrespect because the other communities will start fighting and stuff. It's like, no, you let them play. There's always gonna be, you let them play just because you feel some people might feel disrespect or whatever. Just let them play and let them enjoy and play and let the fans be the fans. We
Yes.
all know on both sides, there's gonna be people who are the extreme. Any little thing is gonna piss them off, right?
Let,
So
let,
just let's just that's what I'm saying. Then
well,
let's
let
not have
me
Tosa Mo and Mate Matonga not play rugby because it's gonna cause disrespect amongst the fans and hurt each other's communities. But
feelings. Well,
yes,
let me, and I will give this. I will give this feedback as well, Xanon. You know, when I would grow up in Tonga and you have a debate with someone who's older than you, right? Or not even older than you, stronger than you physically. Once they start feeling like they're losing the debate, guess what they say, Masi? Shut up before I beat you up. Stop being disrespectful. Now ta'i ko. Tuko pa u now ta'i ko. Right?
yeah, yeah,
When
yeah.
when when the ideas start getting beat up and choked out, then all of a sudden the director, the coach of the idea says, "We're changing the game here. We're calling timeout." And me as the coach, I'm gonna go in and fight for my guy. So to be honest, when I hear things like you're just being disrespectful, I go back to my childhood and say, "Oh Yahweh, they're running out of bullets." So now they're trying to change it. You know, it's like in the rugby game. When you're playing the rugby game and you're losing on the points, guess what the losing team wants to do? They don't want to play rugby anymore. They want to do boxing.
One of yeah, that is always funny.
Anyways,
That's all.
that's funny.
No, but X on A,
Yeah,
appreciate
appreciate it.
your following and your comment. This is just a conversation, Malo.
Malo, last one. Hopefully, this is our last question here from our Tokouso here, TK. If Tongans were so fierce back then, why are there why aren't there any Tongan boxers like us Samoans nowadays?
TK, let me tell you
Mm.
something. Let me tell you something, TK. You know, when the Samoans win, the Tongans win. All right, we all the
Yes.
same. We're all Polynesian. That's how I see it. I see a Samoan just a Polynesian. When the Polynesian wins, we all win because I just see a Samoan that's just when they win, we win. That's how I see it. And here's what I'm gonna say, TK. I'm gonna buy the pay-per-view to watch Joseph Parker fight for the IBF heavyweight title against Dubois. So,
And
like
we
I said,
want Parker to win.
we want Joseph Parker to win. All right. So that's a, the only thing is we have our little, when the stories of Mariner, when they say the Ha'amoa clan will come to Ha'apai to have a little game and they'll ask what kind of rules they'll do. That's the little conflict I see when we have our union matches, our rugby league
Yeah.
matches, or even in the Olympics when we're doing our little. I just see it as when I see a Tonga and Samoa, it's just the modern world we're in, and it's just a little clan fighting. We're just two
Yes.
clans, a Tonga clan and then the Samoa clan. We're just having a little fight back in the
Little
days, like
brotherly love.
brotherly love, just like what Mariner witnessed when Ulukalala Finau's family that lived in Ha'amoa for many times, they would come to Ha'apai and they'll have a little game of match. That's all it is. And that's how I view these things at TK. So, hopefully you can understand where I'm coming from. I don't know about you, Tua. What's your thoughts
I
on
have
TK's
I
question?
have the perfect story to be an analogy for this, TK. So where we grew up in Tonga, the village is called Mua, but Mua is broken into three sections: the Takamotonga, La Paja, and Talasiu. Talasiu
Correct.
is a smaller portion,
Yeah.
very peaceful, very good.
Yeah.
Now, La Paja and the Takamotonga, the two older brothers, if you want to call it, and let's put it this way: Ha'amoa and Tonga are the two big brothers of Polynesia. Okay,
Pretty much.
that's
Yes.
pretty much what it boils
No,
down
no,
to.
no, not even a question. Yeah.
There's almost very little dispute amongst oral history, academics, scientific data. Polynesia originated from Western Polynesia and then pushed north and east, right? And even further west into Melanesia. So I'm going to put the analogy of Tonga and Ha'amoa, that brother relationship, like the Takamotonga and La Paja,
Mm.
right? And when we were growing up, right, and there used to be a nightclub right on the border, Pakimortoi, right?
Yes.
There'd be a nightclub right on the border. There was a bakery on one side, and then there was a road that cut the two villages in half,
And the bakery's
and
still
then
there.
the nightclub on the other side. Yeah, the
Yeah.
bakery, the
Yeah.
Cowley Bakery, right? So when I was kind of like older in high school, we're sitting around. Let's say we've eaten, right? We already ate. We've been sitting up talking. We've played cards, and then we look at the clock. Oh Yahweh! It's Friday night, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh Yahweh!
Something's
Let's
gonna
go watch. Let's go watch. Let's go watch the fight. That is a 99% chance at the end of every night at this nightclub. Because at the nightclub, all the Takamotonga guys and all the La
Yeah.
Paja guys are in there. They've been drinking, maybe talking smack to each other. So there's usually always like a fight, right? So we would go there and say, hey, I want to see a fool, we're going to go watch a fight. So we would walk down with Tuialo and, some of the Tuifua guys, our cousins,
Yeah.
the Tuifuas who live right there. And we would sit there in front of and watch, right?
Mm.
And then this one night, we were almost disappointed, right? we were almost disappointed because they came out of the club and everybody just started walking away.
Mm.
There was no fight. And we were like, dang it. Oh, yeah, way. This is unusual. Sometimes they'll come fighting out of the club. They'll shut down the club early because the fighting started inside, or two people will come out, fight outside, then it turns into a big mall. This one night they come out and there's no fight. And we're like, oh, yeah, way. No entertainment, no pay-per-view. We're not going to get a free stream on YouTube of the fight. So we're sitting there, and then all of a sudden, someone from the Takamotonga side goes, La Paja. He goes, La Paja. Wahamoki taika henna. It was like, La Paja, do you guys have a warrior?
Yeah.
Do you guys have a warrior over there?
Yeah.
And then you hear some people from La Paja, yeah, we got a warrior over here. And then it was like, the Takamotonga goes, okay, we have a warrior over here. Let them meet right in front of where the road is.
Yeah. The boundary.
And it went, at the boundary. So we went from almost disappointment of no entertainment to, oh my goodness,
There's one.
we have a gladiator bout, right? These two warriors, oh yeah, when these two start going at it, and before we know it, there's 15 guys, 20 guys. Then the police show up. start hitting people, sending people home, maybe arrest one or two guys. That is how I see Ha'amoa and Tonga, right?
Yeah.
It's just the two older brothers, always going to be competition, always going to be rubbing shoulders, jiving for position. And so that's just the way it is. And I'm like you, Masi. I don't, if if I can, if I think outside of my current condition of
Mm.
where we are now and how we see the world because of how the Western civilization has cut us into independent individual pieces. That's why I love watching the sports because, like you said, Masi,
Yeah.
I don't see it as, oh, Ha'amoa and Tonga, unless we play each other. Then it's
Yeah.
kind of like,
Yeah.
Tonga and La Paha, this is the
Yeah.
battle, the brotherly
Yeah.
battle. But outside of that, I want Ha'amoa to win, right? Because that's, I don't see it as two different people. We're the same people, just live in different villages,
Yes.
right? You're just La Paha and Tatamotonga, the same village. The only difference is on a larger scale, different islands. I've done my DNA, right? What's the Mapusanga or whatever? What's
Mhm.
the name of that portion in
Oh,
Upolu?
Tuamasanga. Tuamasanga.
Masanga. Apparently, that whole section, a lot of my ancestors come from that area, right? That's where a lot of my ancestors, according to the DNA testing, and then have some Melanesian blood from Fiji as well. Very little, very small percentage, maybe 2%, 1 or 2% Melanesian. But the majority of my Polynesian blood is from Tongatapu, Vava'u,
Tuamasanga no Polo.
and then Upolu. So pretty much straightforward, like you, Masi. I see it pretty
Yeah.
much as the same thing. But with
Yeah.
that being said, I thought it's been a great program, been great. I want to thank everyone. But Masi, close us out for today, man.
I want to thank everyone for your views and interaction. Tua and I also always enjoy doing a episode when there's a lot of questions and interaction, and I appreciate your guys' support. We've been seeing a lot of support coming our way, so thank you very much. Remember to ask the hard question and ask the curious question. I believe, Tua, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And until the next episode of the Polynesian Eyes podcast, take care, everyone.
Peace.
Peace.